My wife demanded a divorce. I want everything except that disabled child. My lawyer whispered, fight for half. I said she can have it all. The courtroom fell silent. I signed every paper. She smiled in victory until her lawyer shouted. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments what city you're watching us from. My wife filed for divorce and said something I'll never forget. I want everything, Aurelio. The house, the money, the investments, everything except that disabled child. That child, that's what she called Gabriel, our 9-year-old son. We were in the courtroom. She was on the other side of the table, impeccable in her white suit, with her lawyer Daniela by her side. I was with Ramon, my lawyer, who couldn't stop sweating and trembling as if he were facing a firing squad. Ramon whispered in my ear desperately, fight for half, Aurelio. You have the right. You can't let her take everything. I looked at the documents in front of me. The house valued at $450,000. The savings accounts, the investments, the car, everything we had built in 23 years of marriage was summarized in those papers. And then I said something no one expected. She can have everything. Absolute silence. Ramon dropped his pen. Victoria blinked, confused for a second before that venomous smile appeared on her face. Daniela, her lawyer, leaned back at her chair with the satisfaction of someone who has just won the lottery without buying a ticket. Are you sure? Ramon grabbed my arm. His fingers were trembling. Aurelio, please think about it. We're talking about everything. Everything. I've already thought about it. I signed the first document, then the second, then the third. The pen glided over the paper with a dry, definitive sound. Each signature was a renunciation, each initial a defeat. Or so it seemed. Victoria couldn't hide her joy. She bit her lower lip to keep from smiling too much, but her eyes shone. Daniela organized the papers with military efficiency, checking each signature, each initial, making sure everything was in order. Very wise of you, Mr. Aurelio. Daniela spoke with that professional, cold, devoid of humanity voice. This will make the process much more civilized. Civilized. What a beautiful word to describe a dispossession. Ramon slumped into his chair, defeated. He looked at me the way you look at a man who has just jumped off a building. With pity, with incomprehension. Outside, the rain beat against the courthouse windows. The sound was constant, hypnotic. The room smelled of old wood and burnt coffee. The fluorescent light on the ceiling flickered from time to time, as if even the electricity was tired of witnessing so much misery. Victoria leaned towards Daniela and whispered something. They both smiled. Two satisfied predators after an easy hunt. I signed the last document. Done. I put the pen on the table. Anything else? Daniela checked everything one more time with that irritating meticulousness of successful lawyers. She went through each page, verified each signature, and then she nodded. Everything in order. Victoria stood up, smoothed her skirt, looked down at me, and at that moment I saw something worse than hatred in her eyes. I saw indifference, as if I no longer existed, as if the 23 years together had been erased with an eraser. Thanks for not complicating things. Her voice sounded almost sweet, almost kind. You were always predictable, predictable. Ramon was gathering his papers with trembling hands, muttering things I couldn't hear. He was furious, disappointed, probably thinking about how to explain to his colleagues that he had lost a case without even fighting. Daniela closed her briefcase with a dry click. Judge Mauricio will review everything tomorrow and issue the final ruling. But with both parties in agreement, it's just a formality. Victoria was already walking towards the door. She didn't look back even once. I remained seated, still, my hands on the table. And then, just as Daniela was putting away the last documents, she stopped. Her face changed. First it was confusion, then concern, then something like panic. She took out one of the papers, read it, reread it. Her eyes widened like saucers. Wait. Her voice no longer sounded confident. Wait a moment. Victoria stopped at the door. What's wrong? Daniela didn't answer. She took out another document, then another. Her hands were no longer steady. The paper was trembling. What the hell? And then she screamed. It wasn't a scream of rage. It was a scream of pure horror. The scream of someone who has just discovered that the floor under their feet never existed. Victoria, stop, don't sign anything else. But it was too late. I'd already signed everything. So had she. Victoria turned from the door. Her face, a moment ago radiant with victory, now showed a crack of confusion. What are you talking about, Daniela? Daniela didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the documents, flipping pages with a frantic speed. Her lips moved silently, as if she were praying or cursing. Daniela. Victoria's voice rose. What's going on? The lawyer looked up. Her face, normally controlled and cold as marble, was now pale, almost gray. There's something here that doesn't add up. Ramon, my lawyer, stopped packing his things. He looked at me with a frown. What do you mean it doesn't add up? Daniela ignored the question, took out her laptop, opened it with trembling hands, and began to type urgently. The sound of the keys filled the tense silence of the room. Click, click, click. With each passing second, her expression grew darker. Victoria walked back to the table. There was no longer elegance in her movements. There was something more primitive. Fear. Daniela, answer me right now. What's happening? The house. Daniela spoke without taking her eyes off the screen. The deed to the house is not in Aurelio's name. What? Victoria snatched one of the documents from the table. What are you talking about? Of course it's in his name. We bought it together 15 years ago. Not anymore. Those two words fell like stones in still water. Victoria read the document once, twice. Her eyes moved from left to right, faster and faster, as if looking for something that wasn't there. This has to be a mistake. It's not a mistake. Daniela slammed the laptop shut. She looked at me. She really looked at me for the first time since I entered that room, and in her eyes, I saw something I liked. Genuine fear. Mr. Aurelio, when did you transfer the ownership of the house? I leaned back in my chair, crossed my hands on my lap, calmly, as if we were talking about the weather. 5 years ago. The silence that followed was so thick I could hear my own heart beating. 5 years. Victoria's voice was high-pitched, almost hysterical. You transferred the house 5 years ago. To whom? I didn't answer immediately. I let the question hang in the air. I let the panic grow in her eyes. Oh, Gabriel. Victoria dropped the document. No, that's impossible. Gabriel is 9 years old. A minor can't. A minor can't own property directly. Daniela finished the sentence. Her voice was now a hoarse whisper, but an irrevocable trust in a minor's name with a designated guardian. That is legal. Ramon looked at me. His mouth was open. Aurelio, you created a trust. I nodded slowly, and the house is in the trust in Gabriel's name. Irrevocable. Victoria took a step back, then another, as if my words were bullets. But you just signed that I get the house. I signed that I waive my rights to the marital assets. My voice was calm, almost bored, but the house is not a marital asset. Not for the last 5 years. It's Gabriel's property. I'm just a trustee. Daniela slumped into her chair. Her hands were trembling as she took more documents from her briefcase. The savings accounts, the certificates of deposit, the investments, all in the trust. I said the words slowly, savoring each syllable. In Gabriel's name, legally transferred 5 years ago, reviewed and approved by a notary, all completely legal. Victoria looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her. It wasn't rage, it was something much worse. It was the slow, painful realization that she had been deceived, that she had celebrated too soon. You're a damn forensic accountant. I finished the sentence for her. Yes, I worked for 30 years auditing corporate fraud, tracking hidden money, unraveling financial schemes that men much smarter than me designed. Did you really think I wouldn't know how to protect my son? Ramon let out a short, incredulous laugh. My God, Aurelio, you planned all this 5 years ago. I confirmed when Victoria started working late, when she stopped coming to Gabriel's therapies, when she started looking at him as if he were a broken piece of furniture not worth fixing. Victoria had tears in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of impotent rage. And what am I supposed to get then? What did I sign for? Daniela was frantically reviewing the papers, flipping pages, reading clauses, looking for something, anything. That could save the situation. And then she stopped. Her face turned ashen. Victoria. What? The debts. That word dropped like a bomb. What debts? Victoria snatched the papers from Daniela's hands. We don't have debts. Aurelio always handled the finances, and she stopped. She read. Reread. Her face went from white to red. $10,000 in personal loans, $90,000 in lines of credit. What the hell is this? These are debts that were taken out in the last 5 years. I explained patiently, as if teaching a child. All in your name, all legal. All documented. I never signed anything. Of course you did. I took out my own copy of the documents, slid them across the table. Here's your signature. And here, and here. Remember when I'd ask you to sign bank papers? When you said you were too busy to read? When you trusted me to take care of everything? Victoria was trembling. Her hands crumpled the papers. And there's more. I continued, my voice still serene. The property taxes for the last 3 years, unpaid, accumulated fines, all under your tax liability as a registered co-owner until the house was transferred to the trust. But the previous tax debts are still yours. This is fraud. Victoria turned to Daniela. This is fraud. We can sue him. We can. It's not fraud. Daniela spoke with a dead, defeated voice. Everything is signed. Everything is notarized. Everything is legal. He used family asset protection laws. He protected his disabled son through an irrevocable trust. Any judge will see this as a responsible father, securing the future of a child with special needs. But he tricked me. You signed the documents. Daniela closed her briefcase. There was nothing more to do. Each and every one of them with full legal capacity. The fact that you didn't read them is not his fault. Victoria looked at me with a hatred so pure I could almost touch it. Son of a responsible father. I corrected. There's a difference. Victoria clung to the edge of the table as if it were the only thing holding her up. Her knuckles were white. Her breathing was ragged, shallow. For the first time in years, I saw her without her mask. Without that veneer of perfection she always wore like armor. It can't be, she whispered. It can't be. Daniela was organizing the documents in silence, with mechanical movements, like a medical examiner cataloging evidence of crime. Only here there was no crime. Just a woman who had completely underestimated the man who slept beside her for 23 years. Ramon, my lawyer, finally found his voice. Aurelio, why didn't you tell me any of this? I looked at him. His face showed a mix of astonishment and something like respect. Because I needed your reaction to be genuine. I needed you to believe I was making a mistake, for you to really think I was giving up. Good Lord. Ramon ran a hand through his hair. You acted like a defeated man. I really thought you had lost your mind. That was the point. Victoria looked up. Her eyes were bloodshot. This was all an act from the beginning. No. I shook my head. The pain was real. The marriage was real. The 23 years together were real. The only thing I acted was the surprise. Because 5 years ago, when you started coming home late smelling of cologne that wasn't mine, when you stopped asking how Gabriel's therapy went, when you started talking about him as if he were a problem to be solved and not a child to be loved, that's when I knew this would end exactly here. You're a manipulator. I'm a father. Daniela interrupted, her voice professional but tense. Mr. Aurelio, I need to confirm something. The cash. The checking accounts, are they also in the trust, every penny worth protecting, and the joint credit cards, canceled 4 years ago, replaced by individual accounts? Victoria let out a bitter, almost hysterical laugh for years ago. So, when you gave me that new card, when you said it was a bank upgrade, it was an account only in your name, with your credit responsibility, with no access to the protected funds. Her voice broke. I spent thousands of dollars on that card, on renovations, on clothes, on trips. $47,000 to be exact. I confirmed all personal debt, all under your name. Daniela closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked like she had aged 10 years. Victoria, we need to talk in private. No. Victoria slammed the table with both hands. The sound echoed in the room like a gunshot. I want answers now. I want to know exactly what you did to me. I stood up slowly. I took a folder from my briefcase, the same folder that had been there all along. Waiting for this moment, I placed it on the table and opened it. This is a complete summary of the current financial situation. I began, my voice neutral, as if giving a corporate presentation. The house, estimated value of $450,000, transferred to the irrevocable trust Gabriel Martinez 5 years. 2 months and 14 days ago, you signed the notarized authorization on March 12th, along with other documents that, according to you, you didn't have time to read because you had a meeting with a client. Victoria turned pale. The investment accounts, $320,000 in index funds, bonds, and stocks, gradually transferred to the same trust over a period of 4 years. Each transfer was approved by you via a digital signature that you authorized when I gave you access to online banking. I thought I was signing to access my own account. You were signing transfer authorizations, each one legal, each one valid. Daniela was taking notes frantically. She knew this would end in litigation, but she also knew, I could see it in her eyes, that there was nothing to be done. I continued. The cars. I sold my truck 2 years ago. The money went to the trust. Your BMW is in your name with an outstanding loan of $28,000. That loan is yours. You said we would pay for it together. You assumed it. I just managed the finances. Victoria was trembling, not from cold, from contained rage. The jewelry, the furniture, everything you consider yours, technically is. You can take it. But the resale value won't cover even 10% of the debts you just inherited. Inherited? Her voice was a shriek. You passed them on to me. You tricked me into signing. I asked you to read the documents on multiple occasions. You chose not to. Ramon intervened, his tone almost amused. Mr. Aurelio, I have to ask, why give her all the credit? Why not just get a divorce and keep everything protected from the start? Because I needed her to believe she had won. I explained if I had fought, if I had defended the assets, she would have hired auditors, she would have investigated. She would have discovered the trust, but by surrendering, by giving her everything without a fight, I activated her worst enemy, her arrogance. Victoria looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. It wasn't pure hatred. It was something more complex. It was the look of someone who finally understands they've been outplayed in a game they didn't even know they were playing. I loved you, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I really loved you, Aurelio. I loved you too. Victoria, I replied honestly. But you stopped loving Gabriel, and that was your mistake, because a man can survive without his wife's love. But a father will never stop protecting his son. Daniela cleared her throat. I need to know for the record what the total value of the assets in the trust is. $990,000 approximately, plus the house. Victoria swayed. Daniela had to hold her arm, and the debts in my client's name total $243,000 plus accumulated interest. The silence that followed was absolute. Outside, the rain had stopped. A ray of sunlight broke through the clouds and streamed through the window, illuminating the dust particles floating in the air. Everything seemed strangely peaceful. Victoria pulled away from Daniela's grasp and walked towards me. For a moment, I thought she would hit me. Her hands clenched into fists. Her jaw was tight, but then something in her broke. And Gabriel? She asked, "What about Gabriel?" "Gabriel is fine," I replied. Gabriel was always fine, because while you were planning how to divide our life, I was planning how to protect his. I am his mother. Biologically, yes. Legally, too, but you haven't hugged him in 3 years. You haven't been to a single one of his therapies in 2 years. You haven't asked him how his day was in a year. I paused. Being a mother isn't a title. It's an action. And you gave up that action long before you asked for this divorce. The tears finally fell down her cheeks. But she said nothing more. There was nothing more to say. Daniela put all the documents in her briefcase. I'm going to need time to review all this with my client. We're going to request a full audit. You can audit whatever you want. I interrupted. I hired 3 different firms to review every document. Everything is in order. Everything is legal. Everything is irreversible. Ramon smiled. A small but genuine smile. Masterstroke. Aurelio. Masterstroke. Victoria looked at me one last time. I hate you. I know. I replied. But Gabriel will still love you. Because children love unconditionally. Even when they shouldn't. She turned and left the room. Daniela followed her, carrying the briefcase as if it weighed a ton. The door closed behind them with a soft click. The sound was so final, so definitive, that for a moment I wondered if any of this had been real. If I had really just dismantled 23 years of marriage in less than an hour. Ramon exhaled slowly, as if he had been holding his breath this whole time. He slumped into his chair and looked at me with a mixture of admiration and something like fear. Aurelio, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I've been practicing family law for 30 years. I've seen it all: fraud, deceit, manipulation. But this, he shook his head. This was precision surgery. 5 years planning every move, every signature, every document. I sat down again. Suddenly, I felt tired. Not physically. It was a deeper kind of tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes after carrying a weight for so long that your muscles have forgotten what it feels like to be without it. What did you know? Ramon asked. When did you know it would come to this? I looked out the window. The sun was beginning to peek through the gray clouds. The city looked washed, clean after the rain. It was a Tuesday. I began. Gabriel was 4 years old. He had just been diagnosed with cerebral palsy. The doctor explained that he would need therapy for life, that he would never walk without help, that his cognitive development would be slower. Ramon listened in silence. Victoria said nothing in the doctor's office, nothing in the car on the way home, nothing during dinner. That night, when she thought I was asleep, I heard her crying in the bathroom. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of frustration, of rage, as if Gabriel had chosen to be born that way, just to ruin her life. People process grief in different ways. It wasn't grief, Ramon, it was resentment. I closed my eyes, remembering the next morning she told me she needed to focus on her career, that I would have to take care of Gabriel's therapies because she had an important presentation, and then another and another. And suddenly, 5 years later, Gabriel knew me, but barely recognized his own mother. And that's when you started planning, right? That's when I started observing. I leaned forward. You see, in my job as a forensic accountant, I learned something crucial. People always leave tracks, always. A strange expense here, a change in routine there. And Victoria started leaving a lot of tracks. Another man, several, I suspect. But I didn't care enough to confirm. What I cared about was realizing that she was no longer in this marriage. She was just waiting for the right moment to get out, and when she got out, she would try to take everything except Gabriel. Ramon took a bottle of water from his briefcase and took a long drink. So you started moving the assets slowly, methodically. A forensic accountant knows exactly how to hide money, but I didn't want to hide it. I wanted to protect it legally. So I researched. I read hundreds of family law cases. I consulted with lawyers specializing in trusts. I learned everything I could about asset protection for minors with disabilities. The irrevocable trust. Exactly. It's a legal tool designed specifically to protect children with special needs. Once the assets are in there, they can't be touched by creditors or divorces or anything. Only Gabriel can benefit from them under the supervision of a designated administrator. You, me, until he turns 25 or until I die, whichever comes first. After that, control passes to a professional administrator I've already appointed and who is specified in the trust documents. Ramon whistled softly. And the debts. How did you get her to sign all that without realizing? I allowed myself a small smile. Victoria always boasted about being brilliant in architecture, but she openly admitted she didn't understand finances. She said that's what I was for, that she earned the money and I managed it. So I presented her with mixed documents, a transfer authorization among 10 pages of insurance renewal, a personal loan disguised among mortgage refinancing documents, and she just signed every time without reading. Sometimes she didn't even look, just asked where do I sign. And I would show her a signature here, another there. And so for 5 years, she built her own trap. But the debts? What did you need her to have debts for? For 2 things. I held up a finger. First, so that the money she took from the joint accounts had a traceable destination. If money simply disappeared, she could claim fraud. But if that money was used to pay for things she authorized, renovations on the house that would later be transferred to the trust, investments that would later protect Gabriel, everything was justified. I held up a second finger and second to ensure that when this moment came, she would not only leave empty-handed, but with a financial reality that would force her to think very carefully before fighting for Gabriel's custody. Ramon frowned. Custody? I thought she didn't want Gabriel. She doesn't want him, but when she realizes the trust exists, that there's almost $1 million in there, she'll want access. And the only way to have access to a minor's resources is by having custody, or at least shared custody. But with $243,000 in debt, she can't prove financial solvency. She can't argue that she's in a better position than me to care for Gabriel. In fact, any judge will see her finances and conclude that she needs to focus on resolving her situation before even thinking about additional responsibilities. Ramon let out an incredulous laugh. You blocked every exit, every possible move. I spent 5 years playing chess while she played checkers. We were silent for a moment. Outside, I heard voices, people coming out of other courtrooms, lives being divided, families being dissolved. I wondered how many of those people really fought for what mattered. And now what? Ramon finally asked. Now I wait. I replied. Daniela will audit everything. She'll hire experts. She'll look for any irregularity. And she won't find anything because there's nothing to find. And Victoria will go through the 5 stages of grief. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Right now, she's between denial and anger. In a few days, maybe weeks, she'll try to bargain. She'll call me. She'll tell me we can work this out, that maybe she was too harsh, that Gabriel needs her. And what will you do? Nothing. I said simply, absolutely nothing, because there's nothing to negotiate. The documents are signed. The trust is established. The divorce will be approved. And I will go with Gabriel to live in peace. Ramon began to pack his things. You know, when you hired me 3 months ago, I thought it would be just another case. A difficult divorce, yes, but manageable. I never imagined you had already won before you even entered this room. I didn't win anything. Ramon, I just protected what should have always been protected. He stood up and extended his hand. I shook it. It's been an honor, Aurelio. A true honor. When Ramon left, I was alone in the courtroom. The sunlight was streaming incompletely now, bathing everything in a golden glow. I went to the window and looked down at the parking lot. Down there I saw Victoria getting into her BMW. Daniela was talking to her, gesturing, probably explaining the magnitude of the disaster. Victoria had her hands on her face. Her shoulders were shaking. A part of me, a small, almost extinct part, felt sorry for her. But then I thought of Gabriel. I thought of all the nights I rocked him to sleep alone because she was too busy. Of all the therapies where I was the only parent present, of all the milestones I celebrated in silence because she wasn't there to see them. I thought of the way Gabriel looks at me with those huge eyes full of absolute trust, as if I were his hero, and I knew I had done the right thing. I took my briefcase and left the room. My footsteps echoed in the empty courthouse hallway. Each step took me further from one chapter of my life and closer to another. Outside, the air smelled of fresh rain. The sky still had clouds, but they were harmless white clouds. I took out my phone and dialed number. Hello. Martina's soft voice, Gabriel's nurse, answered. Hello, Martina. I'm done here. How is Gabriel? He's fine, Mr. Aurelio. He's drawing. Today he drew a superhero. I smiled. Yes. And what's this superhero's name? There was a pause. Then Gabriel's voice, distant but clear. His name is Dad. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. Tell him I'm on my way home. I drove home in silence. The traffic was light for midday. The streets were still damp from the rain, reflecting the slowly clearing sky. I passed familiar places, The coffee shop where Victoria and I used to have breakfast on Sundays. The park where Gabriel took his first steps with the help of his walker. The bookstore where we bought stories that I read to him every night. Each place was a reminder, not of what I lost, but of what I gained. When I got home, well, it wasn't technically my house anymore, but Gabriel's house. I saw Martina at the window. She was 52, with gray hair tied back in a ponytail and the patience of a saint. I had hired her 3 years ago when it became clear I needed professional help to care for Gabriel while I worked. Now I wasn't working anymore. I had resigned from my job 6 months ago, officially for early retirement, actually to prepare for this moment, to be completely available for Gabriel when all this was over. Martina opened the door before I could get my keys out. "How did it go?" she asked. Her eyes showed genuine concern. "Exactly as planned." She nodded. She knew. Not all the details, but she knew enough. "Gabriel asked for you 3 times. I told him you were taking care of important things." "How is therapy?" "Good. He walked 5 meters more than last week. The physical therapist says he's progressing." I entered the house. The familiar smell hit me. Freshly brewed coffee. Crayons. That particular scent of homes where children live. It wasn't the smell of the house Victoria designed. That house smelled of expensive candles and air fresheners. This house smelled of life. "Dad." Gabriel's voice came from the living room. I left my briefcase at the entrance and walked towards him. He was sitting in his special chair, the one that gave him the support he needed. In front of him, a low table covered in drawings, dozens of them, all with bright colors and shapes that only a 9-year-old could create. "Hey, champ." His face lit up. Gabriel had Victoria's brown hair and my green eyes. His smile was something entirely his own, crooked, immense, capable of melting any armor. "Look what I drew." He held up a paper with both hands. The movement was difficult for him. His muscles didn't always obey. But he tried. He always tried. I went over and took the drawing. It was a figure with a red cape, big, strong, with a letter P on its chest. "It's amazing." "Who is it?" "It's you, Dad. You're a superhero." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Me? Why am I a superhero?" Gabriel looked at me with those huge eyes, full of a wisdom he shouldn't have at his age. "Because you always take care of me. Superheroes take care of people." I knelt beside his chair. "You're a superhero too, Gabriel. You're the bravest one I know." "Yes. Yes. Every day, you do difficult things. You walk even when it hurts. You study even when it's harder for you than for other kids. You smile even when you're scared sometimes. That's being brave. That's being a superhero." He hugged me, his thin arms wrapped around my neck with all the strength he could muster, and I hugged him back, feeling that pure, unconditional love that only a child can give. "Did you see Mom today?" he asked against my shoulder. The question caught me off guard. "Yes, I saw her." "Is she coming home?" I pulled back a little to look him in the eyes. "No. Champ, Mama's going to live somewhere else now." "Why?" "How do you explain divorce to a 9-year-old with cerebral palsy? How do you tell him his mother chose not to be in his life without shattering the image he still has of her? Sometimes adults need to live in different places. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It just means things are going to be a little different. Are you going to leave too?" "Never." I said firmly, "I'm never leaving, Gabriel. I promise." "You promise for real?" "I promise for real." He seemed satisfied with that. He went back to his drawings, having already forgotten the conversation. That's how his mind worked, thoughts coming and going like clouds. Sometimes it was frustrating, sometimes it was a blessing. Martina appeared with 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one. "Do you need me to stay longer today?" "No. It's okay. You can leave at your usual time." "Are you sure? It seems like it was a long day." "It was, but it's over." She sat on the couch, sipping her coffee. "Does she know about the trust?" "She does now. And exactly what I expected." "Shock? Rage? Denial?" Martina nodded. She had witnessed how Victoria treated Gabriel for the last 3 years. The visits getting shorter and shorter, the excuses more and more elaborate, the barely disguised disinterest. "Do you think she'll try to fight for custody?" she asked. "She'll consider it. But when her lawyer explains the financial reality, when she understands she can't financially sustain a legal battle while owing $250,000, she'll think better of it. And if she does it anyway, then I'll fight with every legal resource I have, with every document I prepared, with every testimony I can get. I looked at Gabriel, focused on coloring, but I don't think it'll come to that. Victoria is many things, but she's not stupid. She knows when she's lost. Martina finished her coffee. That boy is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. Well, Martina left. I made dinner. Nothing fancy. Pasta with tomato sauce, Gabriel's favorite dish. He couldn't use utensils easily, so he had learned techniques for eating that worked for him. Fingers when necessary, special forks with large handles. Infinite patience. We ate together at the kitchen table. Gabriel told me about his day, about the drawing he made in therapy, about the story Martina read to him, about the bird he saw at the window. I listened to every word as if it were the most important thing in the world, because to him it was. After dinner came the evening routine, a bath that required help, pajamas that required patience, brushing his teeth, which required supervision. Each task was a small challenge, each completed task a small victory. Finally, I tucked him into his bed. The dinosaur sheets he had chosen last month, the special pillow that supported his neck at the right angle, the night light that projected stars on the ceiling. Will you read me a story? Dad? Of course. Which one do you want? The one about the dragon who was scared. I took the book from the shelf. I had read it 100 times. I knew every word by heart, but I read it as if it were the first time, using different voices for each character, making dramatic pauses. Watching Gabriel smile at the funny parts. When I finished, his eyes were already half closed. Dad! Yes, Champ, are you scared sometimes? The question surprised me. Yes, sometimes I'm scared. Of what? Of not being good enough for you. Of not being able to give you everything you deserve. Gabriel opened his eyes completely. But you're the best dad in the world. How do you know? Because you're here. You're always here. Something broke in me. Something I've been holding in for 5 years. Since I started planning all this. Since I knew I would have to fight alone, tears, not many, just 2 or 3 that rolled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Why are you crying, Dad? Because I'm happy, Gabriel. Very, very happy. Happy about what? About having you, about you being my son. About us being a team. He smiled. We're the best team. The best team. I repeated. I kissed him on the forehead, turned off the light, left the door ajar as he liked. In the living room, I collapsed onto the couch. The silence of the house enveloped me. It wasn't an empty silence. It was a full silence, full of possibilities, full of the future. I took out my phone. I had 12 missed calls from Victoria, 3 voicemails, 7 text messages. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened the Trust app. The numbers were there, safe, untouchable, $990, 000 that would grow over time. That would pay for Gabriel's therapies, his education, his medical needs, everything he would need to have the best life possible. Victoria could have had access to all of that. She could have been a part of this, but she chose something else. She chose prestige over love, appearance over substance, her comfort over the needs of her own son, and now she would have to live with that choice. I, on the other hand, would live with mine, and I didn't regret anything. 3 days later, the doorbell rang at 7 in the morning. I was making Gabriel's breakfast. Oatmeal with honey and banana cut into small pieces he could easily chew. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. Outside, the sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I wasn't expecting visitors. I looked through the peephole. Victoria was on the other side, alone, without Daniela, without lawyers. Just her, in jeans and a gray sweatshirt, no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked different, smaller somehow. I opened the door, but I didn't invite her in. We need to talk, she said, without preamble. There's nothing to talk about. Everything was settled at the hearing. Please, Aurelio. Her voice broke slightly. Just give me 5 minutes. I looked back. Gabriel was still in his room, probably awake, but still in his pajamas. Martina would be here in half an hour. 5 minutes outside. I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. The morning air was cool. I could hear birds singing in the trees surrounding the house. The same house that now legally belonged to our son. Victoria hugged herself. I haven't slept in 3 days. That's not my problem. I know. She took a deep breath. Daniela showed me everything. Every document, every signature, every transfer. She explained exactly what you did. What I did was protect my son, leaving me with nothing, saddling me with $250,000 in debt, leaving you with the consequences of your own decisions. I corrected. Every document you signed was presented to you. Every financial decision was discussed. You chose not to pay attention. You chose to trust blindly. You chose to prioritize your career over knowing what you were putting your signature on. She bit her lip. Tears began to form in her eyes. You're right. You're absolutely right. I was careless. I was selfish. I was a terrible mother. I'm not going to contradict you. But I can change, Aurelio. I can be better. Give me a chance. Let me see Gabriel. Let me show him I care. Now you care after 3 years of emotional absence, after calling him that disabled child in front of a room full of strangers. She flinched as if I had hit her. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Yes, you meant it. That's the truth that finally came to light. You always saw him as a burden, as something that ruined your plans for a perfect life. I just needed time to process. The diagnosis was hard for me. It was hard for everyone. Victoria, the difference is that I processed my grief and continued to be his father. You processed your grief and chose to walk away. She was crying openly now, not trying to hide it. What do you want me to do? What do I have to do to fix this? You can't fix it. That's the reality. You can't get back the 3 years you weren't there. You can't erase the therapies you didn't go to. You can't undo the damage of making him feel like he wasn't good enough for you. He never said that. He didn't have to. Children feel these things. They feel when they're not wanted. And Gabriel is more perceptive than you think. Victoria wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I just want to see him. For an hour. Half an hour, whatever. Why? What for? He's my son biologically. But in every other way, you stopped being his mother a long time ago. That's not fair. Fair. I almost laughed. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that Gabriel asks why his mom is never around? Is it fair that he sees other kids with both parents and wonders what he did wrong? Is it fair that I have to make up excuses about why you can't come to his school play or his birthday? I had work. I had responsibilities. We all have responsibilities. I work too, and yet I never missed anything important. She fell silent. The sun was higher now. The golden light illuminated her face. I could see the wrinkles that weren't there 5 years ago, the tiredness in her eyes, the defeat in her shoulders. Daniela says I can't fight. She finally said, she says with my debts, with my current financial situation, no judge will give me custody, not even shared. Daniela is a good lawyer. She's telling you the truth. And if I pay off the debts, what if I find a way out of this? It would take you years. And by the time you do, Gabriel will be 12, 13, 14 years old. You'll have lost even more time. So I'm trapped. You're not trapped. You're experiencing the consequences of your choices. Victoria looked at me with something like hatred, but there was resignation there too, the slow understanding that there really was no way out. You know what's the saddest part? She said, what part of me is relieved? That confession surprised me. Relieved. Relieved not to have to pretend anymore. Not to have to pretend I can handle all this. The truth is, I never knew how to be a mother to a child like Gabriel. I never knew what to say to him, how to play with him, how to make him feel loved when all I felt was fear. Fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of failing. Fear of watching him struggle and not being able to fix it. You know how to fix things, Aurelio? I only know how to design buildings. Perfect structures where everything makes sense. But Gabriel doesn't make sense. His condition doesn't make sense, and I didn't know how to live with that. It was the first time Victoria had spoken with brutal honesty about this, without excuses, without justifications. Fear is normal, I said after a moment. I was scared too. I still am. Every day, I wonder if I'm doing the right thing, if the therapies are working, if Gabriel will be happy, if I can give him the life he deserves. And how do you handle it? By not thinking about the fear. By thinking about him, about Gabriel, about his smile when he achieves something new, about how he hugs me, about how he tells me I'm his hero. I paused. You could have had that too, but you chose to walk away before you really tried. Victoria nodded slowly. You're right. And now it's too late to get back what you lost. Yes, but it's not too late to start over. If you really want to be part of his life, you'll have to earn it. Not with money, not with gifts, with time, with effort, with real presence. Would you let me try? It's not my decision, it's Gabriel's. If he wants to see you, he'll see you, under supervision, on my terms. And if you hurt him again, if you treat him like anything less than the wonderful child he is, you will disappear from his life permanently. And we'll talk about visits if you get to that point. First, you need to prove you can commit. A weekly video call to start. If you can keep that up for 3 months, we'll talk about in-person visits. A video call. That's it. That's more than you've given him in the last year. If you can't commit to a 20-minute call a week, then you're not ready for more. She was quiet, processing, calculating if it was worth the effort. And that told me everything I needed to know. It's a lot to ask, she said finally. It's the bare minimum a parent does. I need time to think about it. Sure, think about it. But in the meantime, don't show up here unannounced. Don't call at all hours. Don't try to manipulate the situation. If you decide you want to try, send me a message. We'll coordinate the first call and see how it goes. And the money, the trust, it's not negotiable. Not now, not ever. That money is for Gabriel, for his future. It has nothing to do with you or me. Daniela says I could contest the trust, claim it was created under false pretenses. You could, and you would lose, and you would spend tens of thousands of dollars on lawyers just to reach the same conclusion. But go ahead, try it if you want. Victoria exhaled slowly. All the air left her lungs, as if she were a deflating balloon. I'm not going to fight. Good decision, but I need help, Aurelio. The debts, I don't know how I'm going to pay them. That's not my problem either. You have a good salary. Make a payment plan. Consult with a financial advisor. Learn to manage your own money. You're cruel. I'm fair. There's a difference. She turned to leave, but stopped. Did you ever really love me? The question caught me by surprise. Yes, I loved you deeply for many years. And now I feel nothing. Not love, not hate, just indifference. And maybe a little pity. She nodded as if that were exactly what she expected to hear. Goodbye, Aurelio. Goodbye, Victoria. I watched her walk to her car, get in, start it, and drive away down the street. And then she was gone. I went into the house. Gabriel was in the living room, in his chair, watching cartoons. Who was that? Dad. Nobody important, champ. Ready for breakfast? Yes. 2 weeks passed in a kind of strange calm. Victoria didn't call, didn't show up, didn't send messages. It was as if she had finally accepted reality and chosen to disappear rather than face it. I focused on Gabriel, on our routine, on building the life we should have always had. The morning started early. Gabriel needed time to wake up completely. His muscles were stiff after sleeping, and we had to do stretching exercises before he could even get out of bed. I helped him patiently, counting each repetition, turning therapy into a game. 10 more. Champ, you can do it. I'm tired, Dad. I know, but superheroes train even when they're tired. Remember what you said? I'm a superhero. Well, you are too. And superheroes don't give up. That always worked. The idea of being strong, of being brave, was enough for him to find energy from somewhere deep inside. Then came breakfast, then homeschooling. Gabriel couldn't attend a regular school. The facilities weren't adapted, and the other children, even if not intentionally cruel, didn't understand his limitations. So I hired a specialized teacher, Gabriella, who came 3 times a week. She was patient, dedicated. She saw Gabriel as a whole person, not a walking disability. Today we're going to learn about the oceans, she would say, unfolding colorful pictures on the table. Did you know there are creatures at the bottom of the sea that have never seen sunlight? Gabriel would lean forward, fascinated like vampires, something like that, but these are real. I would sit in the kitchen during those lessons, working on my laptop, but always listening, always present. I would hear Gabriel's laughter when Gabriella made funny voices, his concentration when he tried to write the letters, his frustration when his fingers didn't cooperate. Every emotion was valid. Every moment mattered. In the afternoons came therapies. Physical on Mondays and Wednesdays, occupational on Tuesdays and Thursdays, speech on Fridays. 5 days a week of hard work, of small victories and occasional setbacks. Javier, his physical therapist, was a burly 40-year-old man who had worked with children with cerebral palsy for 2 decades. He knew every exercise, every technique, every way to motivate a child who was tired of trying. Come on, Gabriel. I know you can take 3 more steps. You did it last week, but my legs hurt. I know, buddy, but the pain means your muscles are working, they're getting stronger. And when you're stronger, you'll be able to do more things. What do you want to be able to do, Gabriel? He would think, his face serious. I want to be able to play soccer. Javier never told him it was impossible. He never took away his dreams. Then we have to keep working because soccer players have very strong legs, and you're going to have the strongest legs of all. I would watch from the door, seeing my son fight against his own body, seeing his tears of frustration when he fell, his determination when he got up again. It was exhausting, it was heartbreaking, it was beautiful. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult session, Gabriel was on the couch, exhausted. Javier approached me as he was packing his equipment. He's progressing well, Mr. Aurelio, faster than I expected. Really. At this rate, in a year, he could be using just a cane instead of the walker, maybe less. I felt something expand in my chest. Hope, that dangerous thing I had learned to keep under control because the disappointments were too painful. That would be amazing. He's a strong kid, and he has the best motivator possible. Javier put a hand on my shoulder. Not all parents get involved like this. Most leave the kids here and go for coffee. You stay, you watch, you learn, you do the exercises with him at home. That makes all the difference. He's my son. What else would I do? You'd be surprised. When Javier left, I made dinner. Roasted chicken with vegetables. Gabriel wasn't a fan of vegetables, but he had learned to negotiate. If you eat 5 broccoli florets, you can have dessert. 3-4 deal. We ate together as always, talking about his day, about what he learned, about his plans for tomorrow. Dad, do you think I'll ever be able to go to a regular school? The question surprised me. Do you want to go to a regular school? I want to have friends, kids my age. My heart tightened. We can look at options. There are schools with special programs where there are other kids who need extra help, kids who would understand you. But would they be my friends? Real friends accept you as you are. And you're amazing, Gabriel. Any kid would be lucky to be your friend. He smiled. That smile that made everything worthwhile. That night, after I put him to bed, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. The sky was clear. Millions of stars shone above me. The street was quiet, except for the occasional sound of a car passing. My phone vibrated. A message. It was from Daniela, Victoria's lawyer. Mr. Aurelio, I need to inform you that my client has signed all the final divorce documents. Judge Mauricio issued the ruling this afternoon. The divorce is official. Victoria has also formally renounced any claim to the trust and has accepted the terms of full custody for you. I'm attaching the documents for your records. I read the message twice. Then I opened the attachments, pages and pages of legal language that basically said one thing. Victoria had completely surrendered. Full custody for me. 0 visitation rights unless both parties agreed otherwise. Acknowledgement of the trust's validity. Acceptance of all debts assigned to her name. It was done. Really done. I replied. Received. Thank you for the information. I put the phone aside and looked at the stars again. I should feel something, triumph, maybe satisfaction, but I just felt tired and a deep, almost overwhelming relief. I wouldn't have to fight anymore. I wouldn't have to worry about Victoria showing up with lawyers and claims. I wouldn't have to protect Gabriel from someone who should have loved him unconditionally, but chose something else. Now I could focus completely on what mattered, on giving Gabriel the best life possible, on being the father he deserved, on building a future where he could thrive. My phone vibrated again. Another message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Aurelio, it's Victoria. I know I said I wouldn't contact you, but I need you to know something. I signed everything. I'm not going to fight. Daniela was right. I can't win, and honestly, I don't know if I want to. What you said about the consequences of my decisions. You're right. You were always right. I wasn't the mother Gabriel deserved, and you were the father I could never be. He's lucky to have you. I hope one day I can see him again, but if not, I want you to know that I understand. Take care of him. I know you will. I read the message 3 times, looking for venom, looking for manipulation, looking for any hint that this was another strategy. But there was nothing, just brutal honesty, just final acceptance. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Gabriel and I needed to move on without the constant shadow of what could have been. That night, I slept better than I had in 5 years. I didn't dream. I didn't wake up in a panic. I just rested deeply and completely. In the morning, Gabriel woke me up by climbing into my bed, which was difficult for him, but he managed it with pure determination. Dad, wake up. It's Saturday. And what do we do on Saturdays? Pancakes. That's right. We're going to make pancakes. In the kitchen, he helped me as best he could, mixing the ingredients in a large bowl, pouring the batter into the pan with my hands, guiding his, laughing when the first one came out misshapen. It looks like a monster, he said. A delicious monster. We ate misshapen pancakes covered in maple syrup and strawberries, and they were the best pancakes I had ever tasted. Because we made them together, because we were a team, because this was our life. Now, no dramas, no battles, just us. And that was more than enough. 6 months later, our life had found a rhythm. It wasn't the life I imagined when I married Victoria all those years ago. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and it was real, and it was enough. Gabriel had progressed remarkably. Javier was right. His physical therapist was always right. Now, Gabriel could walk short distances with just a cane. He still needed the walker for long distances, but the improvement was undeniable. The first time he walked from his room to the kitchen without help, I cried. I couldn't help it. I hugged him and cried against his small shoulder while he awkwardly patted my back. It's okay, Dad. I just walked. As if it weren't a miracle. As if it weren't the result of 1,000 hours of painful therapy, of falls and tears, and getting up again and again. I'm so proud of you, champ. I'm proud of me too. And that answer, that simple, pure confidence, told me we were doing something right. The finances were stable. The trust was growing with the right investments. I lived modestly on my pension and some consulting work I did from home. Nothing that required an office. Nothing that took me away from Gabriel for more than a few hours. Martina still came, but now only 3 days a week. Gabriel needed less constant supervision. He could do more things on his own. Small independences we celebrated as monumental victories. One October afternoon, while Gabriel was doing his homework with Gabriella, I received a call from an unknown number. I usually didn't answer those calls, but something made me respond. Hello, Mr. Aurelio Martinez. A female voice, professional. Yes, my name is Raul Mendoza. I'm a journalist for the Tribune. I'm working on a series of articles about single fathers raising children with special needs. Your name came up in our research, and I'd like to talk to you about your experience. I tensed up immediately. How did you get my name? Through public records of divorce cases. Your case was unusual, and we believe your story could inspire other parents in similar situations. I'm not interested in being an inspiration to anyone. I understand your reluctance, Mr. Martinez, but think about it. There are thousands of parents out there struggling alone, feeling lost. Your story could give them hope. It could show them it's possible. My story is private. You don't have to share personal details, just your perspective, your lessons learned, how you managed to protect your son while navigating a difficult divorce. I was about to hang up. I had my finger on the button, but then I thought of all the nights I spent alone, searching the internet for anyone who understood what I was going through, looking for guides on how to raise a child with cerebral palsy, how to manage finances, how to legally protect a vulnerable child. And I found nothing that really helped, just forums full of people as lost as I was. Let me think about it. Of course, I'll send you an email with more information. Take your time. I hung up and stared at the phone. Did I really want to expose my life like that? Risk Victoria seeing the article and deciding to cause trouble? But then I remembered something Javier once told me. Children like Gabriel need advocates. They need the world to see them not as burdens, but as whole people with infinite potential. Maybe this was my way of being that advocate. That night, after putting Gabriel to bed, I opened my laptop and wrote an email to the journalist. I'd be willing to talk, but with conditions. My son doesn't appear in photos. His name is changed, and I review the article before publication. If you agree, we can coordinate an interview. The reply came in minutes. Agreed. Can we talk this week? 2 days later, Raul Mendoza was sitting in my living room. He was younger than I expected, in his 30s, with glasses and a digital recorder on the coffee table. Thanks for having me, Mr. Martinez. Call me Aurelio. Aurelio, I want you to know that this article comes from a place of respect. I'm not looking for sensationalism. I'm looking for truth. I nodded. Gabriel was with Martina in his room doing fine motor therapy. We had privacy. Where do you want to start? Start where you think is important. I took a deep breath, and then I spoke. I told him about Gabriel's diagnosis, about how Victoria slowly drifted away, about the decision I made 5 years ago to protect my son. I didn't mention names, I didn't reveal specific details of the divorce, but I talked about the process, about the importance of documenting everything, about how irrevocable trust can protect vulnerable children, about how a parent must be proactive, not reactive. Raul was taking notes furiously. Occasionally he asked questions. You never doubted your decision. How did you handle the guilt? What would you say to a parent in a similar situation? We talked for 3 hours. When he finished, I felt drained, but also relieved, as if I had been carrying these words for years. And I finally found a place to leave them. This is going to help a lot of people, Raul said as he put his recorder away. Many parents don't know they have legal options. They don't know how to protect their children. Your story will show them the way. I just hope someone needs it. They will. I guarantee it. The article was published 3 weeks later. The headline was simple: a father, a promise, how I protected my son's future. It didn't mention names, it didn't reveal specific locations, but it told the story, my story, our story. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My email, which Raul had included with my permission, filled up with messages. Dozens, then hundreds. Parents thanking me, parents asking for advice. Parents sharing their own stories of struggle and hope. Thank you for showing me I'm not alone. Your story gave me the courage to start my own protection plan. My son has severe autism, and his mother wants to send him to an institution. I read your article, and now I know I can fight. Each message broke me and rebuilt me at the same time. I hadn't realized how many people were living this same battle in silence. I replied to every email, one by one, offering advice when I could, listening when I could do no more than that. One night, while replying to emails, Gabriel came limping over with his cane. Dad, what are you doing? I'm talking to other dads and moms, people who have special kids like you. There are a lot of kids like me. A lot. And they all have parents who love them very much, just like I love you. He climbed into my lap, which was difficult, but he managed. He settled against my chest. Are you helping them? I'm trying. You're a good dad. You're a good son. We're a good team. The best team in the world. 2 months after the article, I received an unexpected call. It was from a nonprofit organization that worked with families of children with disabilities. Mr. Martinez, we read your story. We were wondering if you'd be interested in speaking at our annual conference. We have hundreds of families attending. Your perspective would be invaluable. I had never spoken in public. The idea terrified me. I'm not a speaker. You don't need to be. You just need to be honest. Tell your truth. That's more powerful than any rehearsed speech. I thought about it for a week. I asked Gabriel what he thought. Are you going to tell them about me? I'm going to tell them about how I love you, about how dads and moms should protect their children. That's okay. Because I love you too. I accepted the invitation. The conference was in March. A huge hall full of families, exhausted parents, crying mothers, children in wheelchairs, children with walkers, children who looked perfectly normal but carried invisible disabilities. I went on stage with trembling hands. I looked at the audience, hundreds of eyes waiting for hope, waiting for answers. I took a deep breath and spoke. I told them about Gabriel, about the diagnosis, about the decision to protect him, about the 5 years of silent planning, about the importance of being proactive, but I also told them about the doubts, about the sleepless nights, about the constant fear of not being enough, about the guilt of feeling relief when Victoria finally left. I told them the truth, the whole truth. When I finished, the silence was absolute. For a second, I thought I had said something wrong. Then someone started clapping, then another, and suddenly the whole room was on their feet, clapping with tears in their eyes. Afterwards, dozens of people came up to me, shaking my hand, hugging me, thanking me. I needed to hear this. It made me feel less alone. I'm going to protect my son, like you protected yours. I drove home that night with a full heart, not of pride, of purpose. Maybe everything I went through, all the pain and betrayal and struggle, had a greater meaning. Maybe it was to get here, to help others find their way. 3 years after the conference, life had transformed into something I never imagined. Gabriel was 12 now. He no longer used a walker, only a cane. And some days, when he felt especially strong, not even that. He walked with a slight limp, but he walked alone, independent, proud. He had started at a specialized school 2 years ago, one where the teachers understood, where the other kids didn't see him as different because they all had their own battles. He had made friends, real friends, kids who invited him to their houses, who laughed with him, not at him. Dad, Mauricio invited me to his birthday party on Saturday. Can I go? Of course you can. Do you need me to take you? No. His mom is going to pick me up. She says I'm old enough now. Old enough. Words at once seemed impossible. I had changed too. After that conference, more organizations contacted me. I started giving talks regularly, writing articles, advising parents in situations similar to mine. It became my full-time job. I didn't earn as much as when I was a forensic accountant, but I earned enough. And more importantly, I earned purpose. Every parent I helped, every child I indirectly protected, was a victory. Gabriel's trust had grown. It was no longer $990,000. It was almost $200,000. Smart investments, compound interest, patience. When he turned 25, he would have more than enough to live independently, to pay for his therapies for life, to have a house adapted to his needs, to never worry about money. That was the goal from the beginning, and we had achieved it. Victoria never came back. Not a call, not a message, not even a birthday card. At first, Gabriel would ask about her occasionally. Where's Mom? Why doesn't she come to see me? I would answer with age-appropriate honesty. Mom is living her own life. Sometimes adults take different paths, but that doesn't mean you're not loved. I love you enough for two. Over time, he stopped asking. Not because he didn't care, but because he had built a life so full of love and support that her absence no longer left a void. He had Martina, who still came, even though we didn't need her as much. She came because she wanted to, because Gabriel was like a grandson to her. He had Javier, his physical therapist, who had seen him grow from a child who could barely take 3 steps to a preteen who dreamed of playing adapted sports. He had Gabriella, his teacher, who had expanded his love for learning to the point where he now read books I had to look up on the internet to understand. And he had me. He would always have me. One spring afternoon, while Gabriel was at school, I received an unexpected email. The sender was Daniela, Victoria's ex-lawyer. My first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity won. Dear Aurelio, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing in a personal capacity, not a professional one. 2 years ago, I stopped representing Victoria. I no longer have contact with her, but I feel I must tell you something. You did the right thing. As a lawyer, I've seen hundreds of divorces. I've seen parents destroy their children in custody battles. I've seen money used as a weapon. But I had never seen someone plan with such precision. Not to win, but to protect. That changed me. It changed how I practice law. I now specialize in helping parents of children with special needs create trusts and protection plans. All inspired by what you did. I just wanted you to know that your story had an impact beyond Gabriel. It had an impact on me. Thank you, Daniela. I read the message 3 times, then I printed it and put it in a folder where I kept important things. Reminders that pain can be transformed into purpose. That night, during dinner, Gabriel asked me a question I didn't expect. Dad, when you're old, who's going to take care of me? The question hit me like a punch. It was something I thought about constantly, but that we had never discussed. Why do you ask that? Because Mauricio told me his dad is going to die someday, and I thought all dads die someday. What's going to happen to me when you die? I put down my fork. This conversation deserved my full attention. Gabriel, remember the trust one sometimes talk about? Yes, it's where the money is for when I'm big. Exactly. But it's not just money. It also includes a complete plan for your future. There's a designated administrator, a man named Roll, who is a lawyer and knows your whole situation. If something happens to me, he'll make sure you have everything you need. But where will I live? That's up to you. When you're older, you can choose. You can live alone with help. You can live in a community with other adults who need support. Or you can live with someone you trust. You have options, Gabriel, and you have the resources to choose. And what if I'm scared? It's normal to be scared of the unknown. I get scared sometimes too, but you know what helps me? Knowing that I prepared you as best I could. That when I'm not here, you'll have the tools to live a good life, a happy life. A very happy life. He was thoughtful, chewing his food slowly. Then he smiled. Okay, as long as I have money to buy pizza on Fridays, I'll be fine. I laughed because only Gabriel could turn an existential conversation into a comment about pizza. You'll always have money for pizza on Fridays, I promise. Months later, on Gabriel's 13th birthday, we threw a party, not huge, but significant. His friends from school, his therapists, Martina, Gabriella, people who genuinely loved him. As I watched Gabriel laugh with his friends trying to blow out the candles on his cake, I felt a presence beside me. It was Javier. 9 years ago, you asked me if I thought Gabriel would ever be able to walk. I remember. I told you maybe because I didn't want to give you false hope. But look at him now. He not only walks, he dances, he plays, he lives. All thanks to you. No, all thanks to you. I just taught him the exercises. You did the real work every day without fail, without complaining. That's the kind of dedication that makes miracles happen. They weren't miracles, it was love. Maybe love is the miracle. That night, after everyone had left, I helped Gabriel get ready for bed. He could do many things on his own now, but he still liked me to be there, and honestly, I liked it too. Dad, this was the best birthday of my life. I'm glad, champ. You know what was the best part? What? That you were here. You're always here. And there was again, that simple phrase that contained everything. You're always here. That was all a child really needed. Not money, although it helped, not a big house, although it was comfortable. Just presence, consistency, unconditional love. And I'll always be here until you're so old you don't need me anymore. I'll always need you, Dad, and I'll always be available. I tucked him in, kissed him on the forehead, turned off the light. In my own room, I sat on the edge of the bed, took my phone, and opened the photo folder. Thousands of photos of Gabriel over the years. Gabriel at 4, newly diagnosed, with fear in his eyes. Gabriel at 6, taking his first steps with a walker. Gabriel at 9, on the day of the divorce, not knowing his future had just been secured. Gabriel at 12, walking with just a cane, smiling confidently. Gabriel, today at 13, surrounded by friends, living a life that once seemed impossible. Each photo was a victory. Each smile, a testament that I did the right thing. Victoria had chosen her path. She had chosen money, freedom, a life without complications, and I had chosen mine. I had chosen sleepless nights, endless therapies, constant worries, but I had also chosen hugs, laughter, I love you, Dad's whisper before sleep, the small miracles of each day, and I wouldn't change a thing. Absolutely nothing, because in the end, real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in moments, in memories, in the love you give and receive. And by that measure, I was the richest man in the world. I went to bed that night with a smile on my face. Tomorrow would be another day. There would be challenges, there would be obstacles, but we would face them together. Gabriel and I, the best team in the world, and that was all we needed.